By December 1941, World War II had been raging for a couple of years, but the US had remained steadfastly isolationist. Then Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, drawing America into the conflict. But how did Hitler feel about it? World War I left Germany humiliated, morally deflated, and with its economy in ruins. The Great Depression had rippled outward from the United States, crippling global economies, including Germany's. The 1919 Treaty of Versailles forced Germany to give up colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, give back territory in France and Poland, pay war reparations to the countries it had harmed, and accept ultimate responsibility for the war as a whole. Germany tried to overhaul its government by instituting the short-lived Weimar Republic, which collapsed in 1933. Into the gap stepped Adolf Hitler, promising a greater, more powerful Germany than ever. Nazi Germany was a fearsome enemy. To this day, World War II what-if scenarios abound, particularly what if Nazi Germany won? Sites like the National Interest say it was possible, except that Germany declared war on the US just 4 days after Pearl Harbor. The Holocaust Explained details that from then on, Germany's loss was all but inevitable. It boiled down to supply routes extended over too great of an area and the lack of resources to sustain a long, widespread conflict. Japan's entry into the war must have seemed like exactly what Germany needed at the time, but it was a miscalculation. Instead, Hitler should have focused on keeping America out of the war altogether. In many ways, Japan was an unlikely entrant into World War II. It had grown from a feudal society to a world power in about 30 years. Japanese leadership was eager to prove their strength on the global stage and in East Asia particularly. This is why, according to Columbia University's Asia for Educators, Japan joined World War I against Germany to expand its sphere of influence over China and Korea. By the 1930s, the Japanese military, which had a powerful voice in the country's government, believed that Japan should conquer nearby nations and bring them to heel. Come September 1940, a mere 22 years after the end of World War I, Japan switched sides and officially entered World War II alongside Germany and Italy. They invaded French Indochina and sought to expand their territory further through Southeast Asia and the Pacific.
Getting colonies, they thought, would economically strengthen them and allow them to build up their military capabilities.
Before this, there had been some unspoken competition between the United States and Japan regarding Asian markets and access to natural resources. On top of this, the United States refused to acknowledge Japan's puppet government in Manchuria, northeastern China, which Japan had dubbed Manchukuo. Then, unbeknownst to any other nation, Japan planned its surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, headquarters of the Pacific Fleet. On December 7, 1941, they struck.
Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
15 out of the 102 ships stationed at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941 were lightly damaged, 11 ships received moderate to severe damage, and 7 ships were sunk. Much more importantly, the attack left over 3,500 people dead or wounded.
The Japanese had everything planned. They were after the battleships and the aircraft.
And Japan didn't only attack Pearl Harbor. In the coming hours, the Japanese attacked Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and the US military bases in Guam and the Philippines. It was precisely the type of sudden, overwhelming blitzkrieg or lightning war tactic that Germany employed in World War II's early days to shock and terrify its enemies. The move came as a shock to German leadership, including Adolf Hitler. At the time, the Nazis were still reeling from a failed attempt to march on Moscow during Operation Barbarossa. When Hitler received the intercepted radio broadcast about Pearl Harbor, he reportedly muttered, "Is the news true?" Hitler hurried out of that building without a hat and coat and ran to a nearby bunker to pass along the news to his military commanders. Commander Wilhelm Keitel reported that this was the only time he'd ever seen Hitler so excited, recalling, "I had the impression that he felt as if freed from a heavy load." German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop is reported to have theorized, "It is probably another propaganda trick of the enemy, which has once again duped my press section." Ribbentrop and Hitler believed Japan's actions were good for the Nazi war effort. Ribbentrop urged Hitler to describe Japan's attacks as a byproduct of German influence, but Hitler replied, "Such a great people as the Japanese do exactly that which they believe to be right and will not be influenced by us in the slightest." Germany, Italy, and Japan signed the Tripartite Pact on September 27, 1940. The treaty was for defensive military support. If one of the member nations was attacked within 10 years, other members of the pact would give them military support if the attacking nation was not involved in the European or the Sino-Japanese conflict. This included the United States. One day after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, the US declared war on Japan. Hitler and Germany had no choice but to honor their treaty with Japan. This led to Hitler's fateful decision to declare war on the US 3 days later on December 11, 1941. At the time, German naval leaders said that Pearl Harbor, quote, marked not only a new phase in the military operations, but opened a global and pan-continental window onto the future order of the world. Despite Hitler's excitement at Japan having attacked the US, it was the United States' entry into World War II that tipped the scales in favor of Allied powers. As the history reader explains, Hitler believed Japan's involvement in the war would draw attention away from the European front and distract from Germany's recent defeat in Russia. According to the Tripartite Pact, Germany was obligated to aid Japan, but not technically required to declare war on the US. But Hitler did not only declare war on America, he did it in the most over-the-top way possible. In an address to the German government, he raged at President Roosevelt, calling him a pawn of the Jewish people. It was a fatal miscalculation. Germany surrendered in defeat on May 7, 1945, a little over a week after Hitler died by suicide.
If Hitler wasn't going to survive the war, he needed to sort of martyr himself for the Nazi cause.
World War II came to an official end on September 2, 1945, with the surrender of Japan as a result of the devastating bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This was the final result of Hitler's enthusiasm for Japanese involvement in the war.